Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to the February edition of Molten Music Monthly. And you join us in the frozen tundra of North Norfolk. And yeah, I know it's nearly March, but February is kind of like that long, dark tea time of the soul, that time where nothing very much happens, certainly in terms of music technology. We're like stuck between the madness and craziness of the NAMM show and then the inevitable disappointment of Music Messa in a few weeks' time. And most manufacturers, it seems, they just hibernate. February is the month for hibernating. And there's just not a whole lot going on, well, other than a little bit of snow, which has got us all very excited, of course. However, I have managed to dredge up a couple of things like this. Studio Electronics sort of got missed at NAMM and they had some really cool boxes and a little expander thing for the SE02. The MIDI Manufacturers Association finally adopt MPE and MCI. Ableton Live 10 has released and gives us kind of more of the same. Erica Synths updates their mini modular Pico system to version 2. Output puts down the furniture and gives us some analog brass and wind. I discover a cool touchy paddy thing on Kickstarter. The Spink-0 Ableton Link Eurorack module thing is a reality. Gibson implodes while Native Instruments releases a virtual Les Paul, so you're never actually going to need to have a real one. And there's this really cool touch plate module thing called the TSNM. Well, I did tell you it was a bit sort of slim pickings this month, which is a good job because it's bloody freezing out here. But first, the news that Cakewalk has been purchased from the Gibson fire sale by someone called Bandlab. Yeah, I know, right? As far as I can make out, Bandlab sort of appeared a year or so ago as part of the most enormous online music retail store in the whole of Asia. And since then, they've been buying up all sorts of things. In fact, they own half of Rolling Stone magazine, which is just a bit curious. So after a bit of Googling, I discover that Bandlab is actually this really quite groovy online door. It will run in a browser and so will run on pretty much anything and let you do all that sort of music making and production sort of thing that we do for free, online, on any device. It's just really weird that it's never really come across my radar before. But anyway, apparently they have saved a whole bunch of jobs from Cakewalk and have taken on a load of their staff. And we just have no idea what it will mean. Will it mean more Cakewalky stuff? Will it mean they'll take the innards of Cakewalk and stack it into their own door? Or will it mean something entirely different? Who knows? Who are these guys? But by the sounds of it, it's sort of like the best decision Gibson have had for a long time. I mean, maybe if we get a few of us together and get a couple of quid, we could buy opcode off them. Somehow I managed to miss Studio Electronics at NAMM, and they seem to have a couple of really cool little things going on. Sometimes I feel that Studio Electronics haven't quite sort of found their feet yet in the current state of the synthesizer industry. I mean, for a long time, it was only really them who were still making analog synthesizers. And now that the rest of the world has exploded in this hardware revolution all the way around them, some of their stuff kind of looks a bit like sort of dated and crappy. Which it isn't, because they make awesome stuff. It's just their flair for design perhaps hasn't really been where it needs to be compared to a lot of stuff these days. So finally they've decided they're not going to just sit around like a bunch of old fuddy-duddies and they're actually going to do something about it. Now at NAMM they're showing their new BoomStar range. Not that it's new exactly, they already had a BoomStar range, but this is a sort of a reworking of them. They've prettied them up, they've designed much better looking cases and enclosures for them with the nice wooden edges and a proper layout, proper labelling. I mean, the original ones did rather look like some kind of high school electronics project, but these really do look the business. And along with the usual ones, they introduced a new one with a roll-in filter, because the whole idea behind BoomStar synths is that you get an awesome monosynth which has different flavors of filter built in. So there's an Oberheim one, an ARP one, a 303 one, a CS81, and this new one uses the Jupiter to sort of Juno filter topology that they've been working on in some of their other modules. And suffice to say, the whole thing sounds awesome. And they look awesome now too, which is such a great thing. Now they cost over $1,000 each. They're not cheap, but these are sort of premium boutique analog synthesizers. It still feels a bit of a stretch though to get all the way up to £1,000 for a mono synth, but I don't know, I guess it just has to be judged purely on the quality of the device. And Studio Electronics do have an awesome amount of synthesizer know-how. The other thing they had, which I thought was quite telling or amusing, I'm not quite sure, it was an expander for the SE02. Now the SE02 is the awesome little monosynth that they made with Roland in the Roland boutique form factor. Now you see the way I'm using my hands here, that is not the size of a Roland boutique instrument. It's tiny, they're weeny, they're little small little things like this, but well, you know, not much bigger than this piece of paper. And because of that, on the SE02 in particular, the knobs are tiny. I mean, they're not mini knobs like you get on some things, but they look very much like big knobs, but they're actually not. They're quite small and quite fiddly. And so Studio Electronics have taken it upon themselves to go, well, we're not going to stand for that because everyone's moaning about it. And so they've released this little expander box, which has a whacking great big filter knob on it. Awesome. But not just that, it's also got a high pass filter knob, an external input knob, and jack sockets on the back, proper size 1/4 inch jack sockets, because the boutique range only ever has little mini jacks on the back. So essentially Studio Electronics have gone, yeah, we love this little collaboration with Roland, but we just really don't like the boutique form factor. So here's a little box which is going to take a load of the connectors and give you a proper filter knob so that you can enjoy using our awesome device. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a super idea. If you're an SE02 owner, then I think you need one of these little boxes. And they're not that expensive either. So go and check those out. Now, I spoke the other month about the drive to get MPE and MCI adopted by the MIDI industry. Yeah, what does that mean? Well, but now it has. The MIDI Manufacturers Association have got together and gone, yeah, all right. Yeah, all right. We'll do that then. Great. So that's a win. That's a win for everybody. What does it all mean? Well, MPE, as you are no doubt aware, used to mean multi-dimensional polyphonic expression. Polyphonic, is that a word? Could be polyphonic, could be polyphony. You know what? I think I forget, and it doesn't really matter because they've changed it now. It's now changed to MIDI polyphonic, polyphonic expression. I'm just going to throw that word in there, polyphonic. That's what we're going to go with from now on. MIDI polyphonic expression. Anyway, it's what they use on all those rolly keyboards, those spongy keyboards where you go press down and move about, and you have individual control over individual notes. I mean, that's the point. The whole multi-dimensional or the polyphonic side of this is that when you play a single note on a keyboard, you can modulate it and pitch bend it. And if you play notes together, they all modulate and all pitch bend. But with MPE, they do so individually because you're routing individual notes over different MIDI channels very cleverly using the original MIDI spec. And that allows you individual expression on individual notes. Got it? Now, I did a whole massive video review of the Rolly Seaboard keyboard. You should go and check that out because I talk a lot about MPE in there and what it can do and how cool it is and how we all need it. Or do we? I mean, most of us, some of us really need that. Well, at least the person who owns Rolly is also on the board of MIDI. And so, you know, that's just how you get things done, I think. But probably what is more interesting is this MIDI CI business. Now, the CI stands for Capability Inquiry, and it's all about the exchange of information between different MIDI devices so it can find out what the other one has, what parameters it has, what mapping it has, what controls it has, what it can do, what its patch names are. All that stuff can be instantly exchanged between different MIDI devices. That doesn't really happen at the moment. You can do sort of dumps from one thing to another, but it's always in one direction. This is more of a bi-directional conversation. So that is being brought into MIDI, which also brings in something else, which is about categories, where if you're building a virtual synth or a hardware synth, it's bound to have lots of similar controls to a similar sort of instrument. So for instance, you're building an organ, any organ is going to have a bunch of similar controls. A piano will have a bunch of similar controls. A stringed instruments will have a bunch of similar controls. So why don't we standardize those like we do with the general MIDI spec? And then when you swap one organ for another, all of your controller data and all your other stuff is all going to be mapped to the right place already. making your workflow much easier, making it much simpler to change and swap between different voices and different instruments. So you can pull out one synth, put in a similar synth, and it's all going to be just working perfectly. I mean, that's awesome. So that has also been adopted by the MIDI Manufacturers Association. So hopefully the result of that will be that we will have a more intelligent MIDI system going on, that there will be an exchange of information, that everything will respond to multi-channels of expression, and it will just kind of reinvigorate the whole MIDI thing, which is at the moment sort of losing out to control voltage and other ways of controlling things. And let's face it, this is the first update to MIDI in about 30 years. So cool all round. Ableton Live 10 has been released, hooray! And it's just like they said it was, and it's kind of just the same as it's always been, except a little bit better, a few more things, a few tweaks, a few moves and stuff. Yay! It's great. It's great. No, actually, honestly, the first time I ran it, I really did feel that the look of it, the tweaks they've done to the interface, the freshness somehow that they've brought in, it's somehow cleaner. It's somehow nicer. Whatever it is they've done in there has made a really good job of just giving you a slight breath of fresh air through the whole interface. And that's really clever, really well done. So it seems like it's just been brought bang up to date, because the old interface in Ableton Live has been feeling old, feeling tired, feeling kind of a little bit behind. Whereas now, maybe the whole thing is an illusion, I don't know, but it certainly feels fresh, which is nice. That's what you want. That's what you want with an update. You want to feel like you're getting somewhere, that you're being brought up to something. And I think they've done that really well. I mean, there's not a massive amount of features in there. I mean, they were gazumped rather by Pro Tools 2018 with the whole retrospective recording MIDI thing, because Avid launched a new version of Pro Tools at NAMM a few weeks before, and one of their big features was the fact that you can just play anything you like and it's always recording in the background. Now Ableton Live does that too, and that was one of their key features. It's just they didn't quite get it released quick enough, but it's still a very cool thing. And the other cool thing is that for those of us using touchscreens or surfaces or anything like that, they've finally integrated the idea of an absolute mouse mode. Because if you're using a touchscreen with Ableton and you try to move a fader, the faders just wang around all over the place from maximum to minimum as soon as you just kind of touch them a tiny little bit. And you used to have to go into the options.txt file hidden away in some backwater folder of the Ableton Live program thingy and do adjustments in order to make it work where you can move your finger and it moves a fader or control. That is now simply a tick box. Hurrah! But that is the only concession they've made towards touch. There's no other touch facility in there. The clips are still the same size. Everything is just one finger movement, which works fine. That's fine. And the fact that they have enlarged the GUIs on a few things also makes that better. But the clips are still annoyingly small and difficult to trigger with the finger. But hey, they don't care about us. They don't care about us. They never have. They probably never will. Erica Synths make these cool little modules called the Pico modules. They're only 3 HP wide, and they've got them across a whole range of different things, doing all sorts of tasks and bits and pieces. I've got a drums one, which has got 2 drum sounds inside, well, a bunch of drum sounds, but you can trigger 2 drum sounds. And I've got the DSP one, which has got a bunch of effects inside. But they've put them all together into a bit of a case and a power supply thing and created it into this rather cool mini modular system. And they've just updated this to version 2 because they've been releasing new Pico modules and they've thought it was about time they updated their mini modular system. So in the box you get a whole bunch of wavetable sounds, their new voice module, you get DSP, you get sequencers, randomization, triggering, mixing, VCAs, envelopes, the whole lot. It's an entire modular system on a small scale, but it is completely Eurorack and will go into any other Eurorack system as well. But this is a complete wooden-sided unit, and it's an ace way to get into modular synthesis, particularly if you don't have the space or you're afraid that the whole thing is going to just overflow in terms of price. Because the price of this is 1,111 euros and 11 cents. weirdly, but that's how much it costs. And that's actually quite a good price for such a comprehensive little modular system. And if you get bored with it, you can make it bigger. Now, Output seemed to take some kind of strange turn into building studio furniture. I still can't quite get my head around it. But anyway, they are back to doing what they do best, which is releasing really weird sample-based, manipulable, modulatable, crazy instruments. And their latest one is called Analog Brass and Winds. I do love what they do with the GUI. It's all weird pipes and stuff and sliders and sort of this animated front end that just gives you a sense of what's going on. Apparently they sampled an 18-piece brass section and an 18-piece winds section, all using hand-picked musicians. Now that's quite fascinating. How do you hand-pick musicians? I mean, did they line them up against the wall and go, that one, that one, that one? It kind of reminds me of school being picked, or rather not picked, for the school team. I mean, what, did they have 50 musicians and there's a whole bunch of them going, oh, I didn't get picked. I feel really crappy about myself now. I don't know. I don't know how they do that, but that's what they did. But the sound is, as with all Output stuff, is really interesting. It starts from a place of authenticity and of a traditional sound, and then just mangles the heck out of it. It combines different things from different places, so you get a breathiness with a paddiness, or a blast of brass along with the rebendingness of something else, all mangled in and sequenced in and chopped in and reverbed and delayed. And yeah, they just do interesting creative things. I always enjoy playing with Output instruments. Now here's a groovy idea. It's a little touchpad, 6x6 grid of touchable, capacitive, I think, fingery type button things on a little slab that sits on your desktop. And you can program these to be whatever the heck you like. So it instantly becomes a DAW toolbar, a shortcut thingy, a macro what's it, where you can fire off different commands and different shortcuts and stuff without having to learn what the key combinations are. Or perhaps if, like me, you're using a touchscreen and you're fed up with a lack of access to some kind of on-screen toolbar, then maybe this is the fella. It sits there, it's got all your shortcuts on, bring up your mixer, bring up your instruments, copy, paste, delete, cycle, or more intelligent things like extracting audio, or you can set it up to do a number of commands all together at once. Really quite interesting. And it also has this sort of wipe clean overlay, so you can scribble different things over the top to tell you what each of the things are doing. And then you can replace that with another one or another one. It comes with 5 apparently, or you could probably wash them and clean them and add new ones on. I don't know. Anyway, the editing is done in a text editor of all places, which just seems slightly out of step with the grooviness of it all, because it seems like a useful little device. But if you've got to fart around in kind of a text editor in a really sort of lo-fi, low-level way of programming a thing, I think that will put people off. You need just something simple and obvious and something that will take you through it. But who knows, it's the first incarnation, so maybe that's something that will come along later. It's Arduino based, and so you can program the heck out of it if you fancy that kind of thing. Otherwise, at sort of 50 quid, it's kind of cheap enough and useful enough to sort of make its way onto your desktop, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it's on Kickstarter now, so go and check it out. A while ago, I talked about the Pico or Pink0 project, which was the idea of taking the Ableton Link protocol and jamming it into a Eurorack module. Ableton Link is this fabulous thing that just tempo syncs up anything that's on the same network. So you've got Bitwig running over here, Ableton Live running over there, and the two will just run in time. It's that simple. You don't have to do anything. Ableton Link also runs on the iPad in a number of apps. You can get that to sync to something. So what people thought, myself included, was that wouldn't that be awesome if that was in a Eurorack module, that you could just connect to your network and suddenly your DAW is in time with the Eurorack, or your Eurorack is in time with your app on your iPad. I mean, that's got to be worth something. Got to be really cool, that, I think. because we spend a whole load of time trying to sync things up. Or rather we don't, because it's usually far too difficult. So this is a joyously simple way of syncing different devices together. And if that can make its way into Eurorack, I think that's flipping awesome. Anyway, Seismic Industries seem to have got to the end of the problem and have released the Spink-0 or Spink-0, I'm not entirely sure. But it's a great little module that does exactly this. You can either set a tempo or have the tempo set by something else and it will kick out clock to run your entire Eurorack. Absolute genius. Simple, it looks beautiful. What a great little thing. However, they've only just sort of really started doing it, and at the moment they're only making enough PCBs to run a couple of workshops where you can go along and build one yourself. And that's their main thrust, really. They kind of want to sell it as a PCB and a front panel and let you go and fuss about all the components and actually putting it together. There is an option to buy one which is pre-built, but that costs like 250 euros as compared to sort of 30, 40 euros for just the PCB. But I'd like to see some kind of middle ground where there's some kind of sort of kit in between the two. I think that would be rather awesome. But anyway, it appears to be working and working well. So I'm looking forward to perhaps at some point getting my hands on one to try it out. Now here's the coolest thing of the week. It's a Eurorack module that gives you 10 pressure sensitive touch plates with which to do all sorts of interesting things to your Eurorack. It can be an arpeggiator, it can be a sequencer, it can be just notes that you press, or it can be a CV generator and recorder, which is really interesting. So, you know, you tap on it and make notes, or you hold notes down and it arpeggiates, or you create a sequence, and you can program those touch plates to be whatever notes you want them to be. But some of the more interesting stuff is that you can record the pressure that you press on them, and that generates CV, which then comes out. But as you record it, you can then loop it. So you're like creating your own modulation curve, if you like, your own waveform or your own control over something, and sort of overdub it on the top. So you go whoosh, and then, well, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, you have to check out the video because it makes a whole lot more sense than I'm making here. But it's a good looking, it's a good size. I mean, it's slightly wider than the Make Noise pressure points, but that only has 4, I think, touchpads, whereas this has 10. And it's narrower than the Make Noise Rene. But I'm pretty sure that this can do kind of the functionality of both those things. They call it Touch Sensing Note Memory, or TSNM, and they do it in a 3U format for Eurorack or a 4U format for Buchla. Now, it doesn't come built and it doesn't come as a kit. They're only producing it as a PCB and the front panel, which, although, you know, I enjoy the challenge of putting one of these things together, I don't really enjoy the challenge of finding the bits, finding the parts, sourcing the components. That to me is kind of the least interesting thing of the whole game. But suffice to say, if I could get around to it, then it would be a really, really useful little module, particularly in terms of performance, where you just wanted to trigger off a quick melody or modulate something quickly, or use it to transpose other sequences, or to send a CV out to other bits and pieces in your rack in order to move something on, to trigger something or to change something. Yeah, I think it's a really nice little thing. In response to the $299 Behringer Model D, Moog have gone, well, big, I suppose. Their response has been to resurrect a 50-year-old synthesizer called the Moog Synthesizer 3P. Now, the P stands for portable, because this is one that is actually small enough to fit in the back of the car, and it comes in 3 cabinets, rather nice looking cabinets, and it's stuffed full of 37 different handmade, handcrafted, hand-soldered modules. I guess you could probably call it the pinnacle of humankind hand put it together, crafted type synthesizer thingies. I don't know, but it's got about sort of 10 oscillators, it's got mixers, filters, all that sort of gubbins in there, ready to make this glorious Moog-based music. Doesn't have a keyboard, doesn't come with a sequencer. Those things are extra. They are only going to make 40, so it's a very exclusive instrument. And if you'd like to get your hands on one, then that's going to cost you $35,000. $35,000. Ha! Take that, Behringer. See what you do with that, eh? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Each one is going to be built to the exact original specification, including all of the crappiness, including all of the tuning issues and the noisiness, all of those lovely things that we love about retro synthesizers. That's going to be all in there because it's authentic, right down to the last button. So, Behringer, your move. Now, I don't claim to understand anything about the whole Gibson nightmare. What is going on with that? I mean, it's the company that produced or used to produce some of the most extraordinary guitars on the planet, and now it just seems to be spiraling down into this chasm of voidness. I don't know what's going on with that. But then I've never really understood why Gibson bought half the things that it did, why it felt that it's a technology company. Now it seems to be making washing machines, I think. But it seemed weirdly appropriate that Native Instruments chose this time to release their session guitarist Electric Sunburst, which is based upon sampling the soul out of a Heritage Les Paul guitar. It uses a very innovative sort of engine thingy to emulate strumming and picking and arpeggiators, as well as all the leads and power chords and all that loveliness that you know you're going to need. It's packed full of effects and amps and cabinets and all that garbage and different ways of playing, styles you would never need to pick up a real Les Paul ever again. And in some ways, that's really a fitting homage to Gibson disappearing up its own backside. And listening to the demos, it sounds alarmingly like Native Instruments have pretty much nailed this one. So is that it for Gibson? Are we now just left with a virtual instrument version? I don't know. Well, there you are. See, I told you I was scraping the barrel a little bit to try to find things to talk to you about. But then, you know me, I can talk about anything, mostly, for a very, very, very long time. Just talking, just saying more things, finding more things to talk about, going on about this aspect and that aspect, and how perhaps that made me feel, or not. You know me. Anyway, last month, I mentioned this marvellous thing, this Molten Modular Music Making Month, that March was going to be the Molten Music Monthly Modular Music Making Month. It was this awesome idea that every other day we're going to release another track. We're going to just dedicate the month to making music, to not farting around or procrastinating, but actually producing some tunes. That would be awesome. That would be amazing. Let's do that. And then the sort of response I got was sort of along the lines of this. Overwhelmed I was, so much so that I think I can't quite handle the weight of expectation, the way that that everyone is waiting for this awesomeness that's going to flow from my very soul. Yeah, I just don't think I can find the time. I just don't think I can do it. I can't. I've got too much going on, too many other things going on. However, what I would say is that in preparation, in trying to prepare myself for this month, it's really sort of borne fruit in how I've approached my Eurorack and other bits and pieces. I've really looked into how can I create a song? How can I do more than just a patch? How can I pull out something which is perhaps structured in a recognizable way that could perhaps be sung along to? These are all interesting ideas. And that's kind of what I wanted to explore in doing this track every other day. But I just cannot find the time or the headspace for it. So it's just not going to happen. So for all of you 2 or 3 people out there who thought this was a great idea and were going to come along with me, I apologize. I do sincerely apologize. But you do your thing. You do your thing and tell me about it. That'll be great. Because I'm going to carry on doing my thing. I am inspired to do more music, to produce more tunes. And some of the videos I've put out recently have had quite a good reaction. And that's encouraged me to think that, yeah, I should be putting together bits of music and videoing it and releasing it and just putting it out there because people do, and I should. So I will. And of course, one of the reasons why I don't have any time for this music making lark is that I have some awesome things to be doing. Now at the moment, I'm just finishing off my review on the Arturia Audio Fuse on Windows, reviewed on Windows. No one's reviewed it on Windows as far as I can tell. So that's what I'm doing. I'm reviewing it on Windows. And I'm going to tell you all about that, although a quick spoiler is it's kind of better than I thought. And that's always good, because I think everything's pretty awesome. Following on from that, I'm throwing myself headlong into the Vermona Random Rhythm, which is this great rhythm trigger sequencing sort of module thing. Yeah, I've already put a piece of music up on the YouTube channel of me having a play with that, and it has a lot of stuff going on in there. So that's my next thing. I will focus purely on that, hopefully for the next week, and do my review on that next week. I need to do a bunch more videos on DAWs running on the Surface. I need to do Pro Tools 2018, how it works on the Surface, how touchy is it. I need to do OpenLive 10, Reason 10, Waveform 9 has just come out. Oh, I probably should have mentioned that earlier, that Waveform 9 is out, but I'm going to do a lot more on Waveform 9, I think. So I'm keeping that one back at the moment, because that's largely an undiscovered and undervalued DAW that if anyone is disillusioned with their current music making software, they really should go and check that out. That's Traction Waveform 9, because it holds lots of secrets and special powers that a lot of other things don't. And there's also a new version of Stage Light coming along, which I haven't looked at in ages. I want to go and revisit that. At the same time, Erica Synths keep threatening to send me the graphic VCO module, which looks fascinating. And I've still got the Varigate 4 Plus to have a look at as well. And all alongside that, I've got writing to do and computers to build and a life to live. And also this weekend, I do happen to be doing a little bit of performing. Sunday night at Great Yarmouth Minster, I'm taking my whole modular rig along as part of the Soul Circus event. Now, Soul Circus is something I've been part of for many years, and it's a collective of people who put together alternative worship services. And my role within that is largely to provide the kind of weird background music and visuals. But this is the first one that I'm taking along just my Eurorack. I mean, I'll have my Surface as well, running other loops and bits and pieces for other things, and also controlling the visuals. But as far as the music goes, I'm hoping to sort of, well, pull it out of my arse on the night. That's the plan, is just to extract music from my rack and see how that goes. I bet you had no idea I was that spiritual. So that'll do. That'll have to do. I think that's all I can find. Can't find anything else to talk about, so I'll just stop talking. Please share, please subscribe, please get on the old Facebooks and Twitters. Oh, and just a note to say that I like to keep my personal Facebook account just for people I actually know, so please don't be offended if I completely ignore your well-meant friend request. I think you're lovely, but please follow me on something else, Twitter or Instagram. Instagram is actually quite a good place, because that's the one place where I combine both sort of Molten stuff and synthesizer stuff with personal life stuff as well. So seek me out on there by all means. And in the meantime, stay warm and go and make some tunes.